Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Process. It has been a pretty crazy week over here, and I'm just sitting down in the office now thinking that there's a thought that I'd really love to dig into and talk about with you and see if it resonates with anyone else. It's a lesson that I have spent the better part of 5 years unlearning. And this is not a finished process for me in any capacity. I still find this pop up in different aspects of my life, but I think that's why it's so important to talk about. And that's the whole point of this podcast, as I've said before, is that it's a way for me to share my thinking and share how I'm working through things, and then be able to potentially help someone else that might be going through a similar thing. So I did speak about this briefly on Instagram a couple of days ago and had a couple of people message me about it. And so I thought, okay, this might be something interesting, worth exploring a little bit more. And so what we're going to talk about today is black and white thinking. And what do I mean by that? When I say black and white thinking, I'm referring to the way that we will often look at things as though there is really only two ways of doing it. And that often one of those ways is right and one of those ways is wrong. And there's not really any middle ground, there's no nuance. And of course, even saying it right now, I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because there's nuance to everything. But this way of thinking, I think a lot of us fall into a lot of the time because it has almost been drilled into us. I think back for myself on where this came from, and the biggest example that pops up right away is school, is the education system, where the whole premise of it is that there are tasks and assessments and assignments and tests and all of these things where there is one right way to solve whatever the problem is. So, whether that is a science question or whether that is an essay about a book, there is some sort of rubric and there's some sort of marking system that the teacher is using to go, how closely is this student aligning with the outcomes that we're looking for in this rubric? And of course, there are elements of, in math or science, a lot of the times there is one right answer potentially. But I think in a lot of ways, it tends to put us into this box where we have to confine or push ourselves to create whatever it is that the teacher is looking for or that the curriculum is looking for, when in reality, life doesn't really work that way. There might be, one ideal end goal or answer, but the ways that you can get to that answer or the ways that you could solve that problem are infinite. And we spend most of our childhood in school. We spend most of our childhood in this educational setting where we are just having this lesson repeated to us over and over and over again. And I shouldn't say us, I guess. Let me personalize this and say, for me, this has been my experience. That was my experience going through school, was that I developed this understanding that if I could figure it out, what the teacher was wanting from me, then I could do it right. And I could get a good mark and I could do really well. And if I didn't figure it out and I didn't get a good mark, then I was wrong. And therefore, my worth was lower. And there's a whole other piece of how that became tied to my worth. But I think what really matters right now for what I'm talking about is the fact that you get lumped into two groups of right or wrong, an A plus or a D, based on how well you can conform your idea to whatever the projected kind of standard was in that classroom, in that grade, whatever the curriculum was at that point. And so I did that throughout school. I got really good at it. I feel like I learned how to hack the system and structure my essays and basically memorize stuff within, equations within math. I remember even in high school, I would be so good at working out the problem if I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I would just copy that same process over and over and over again. And so then if I came across something that I had never seen before and potentially I couldn't apply that exact same process and that exact same way of solving it, I was so lost. And that continued then into my adult life, where it became very clear that there isn't just one way to solve problems, but my brain would fall into this way of thinking where it's either this way or that way. It's either right or wrong, and I have to try and get it right. And I would put so much pressure on myself to get it right all the time because of this repeated exposure when I was a kid. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, the last 5 years have been quite eye-opening for me in terms of realizing that this was happening and happening in every single aspect of my life, where there's only one right or wrong way to do art. There's only one right or wrong way to do cooking. There's only one right or wrong way to exercise. And I name those three examples because those are three things that I had stories for myself that I wasn't good at. And so I wouldn't do those things. I never did anything art related because I wasn't good at it right away. And so typical black and white thinking, that's not for me, because you either can do art or you can't. There's no in between. There's no nuance. It just is or it isn't. Instead of, well, here I am right now, and here's where I could be if I practiced. That was incredibly challenging for my brain to even consider as an option. So much so that I didn't. It was only in the last few years when I went, hang on, why can't I pick up a paintbrush and paint something? Why do I have to be at a certain level? I'm not getting marked for this, but because for so long I internalized this concept that, like, you do something, you get a mark for it, and you're either right or wrong. And I want to be right. I want to make sure that what I'm doing, I'm doing it correctly. And if I can't do it correctly, well, then I'm just not going to do it. Which is sad for me to think about now, but look, it was my reality, and it really governed my life and the way that I showed up and the way that I would try new things or not try new things because I felt like I needed to have it right. It's the same thing for cooking. I basically had this story that I'm just not a good cook because I didn't know how to combine ingredients and whatever the story was, but it was another area where I had really struggled for a long time, or I would say, oh, I can only do these couple of meals that potentially maybe I had done and then gotten good feedback on. And so it was like, okay, cool, tick. This is one of the ones I can do right. And so I'm going to focus on that. And then another one, of course, was the exercising, where I just thought that I had certain skills when I was playing basketball, but there were so many other skills within sports that I wasn't good at. And again, never even gave myself the chance to be bad at. I just didn't do it because it was wrong. And that meant it wasn't for me. And again, it sounds potentially silly when I'm saying it out loud now. I mean, it sounds silly to me as I'm saying it, and maybe you're like, wow, that's a crazy way of thinking of things. And if you think that, that's amazing, because it means that you you haven't been governed by this way of thinking as much as I have. But for me, this was absolutely my reality for the bulk of my childhood and even my early adulthood. And so it's important for me that I am sharing. And so if there's one person listening to this that is like, yes, this is exactly how I was living as well, then hopefully this can help to shift your perspective out of that way of thinking, because it is extremely self-limiting and it is really sad. Like I said, it's really sad. So, so that was kind of the way that I moved through the world, and the way that I would not do things that didn't immediately come naturally to me, because I had to be good at it. If I wasn't good at it, it meant, not for me. And so the last few years have been really me challenging myself to step out of that binary thinking and to go, okay, what is the nuance here? And where can I see that potentially A, I have more skill than I thought I did, and B, I can learn this or I can get better at this over time, and I can do that, slowly and at my own pace and without as much pressure to get it perfect. And so it's been interesting because I have kind of had to do this one thing at a time. And so with painting, this was something that only really came up maybe 2 years ago. And the reason that it became so clear to me was because I went to a few different, those paint and sip activities where you go with a bunch of friends and it's supposed to be really relaxing and enjoyable. You have a drink and you paint something, and there's someone at the front that's showing you exactly what to do. So it's not even like you're coming up with it on your own. But I went to probably 3 or 4 different versions of this activity, and I hated it. And not because I was with my friends and I was having a nice time out and it was a beautiful restaurant or wherever it was, but because I put so much pressure on myself that this painting needed to be at a certain caliber because it was either right or wrong. And I wasn't good at painting at the time. And I mean, I'm still not good at painting yet, and that's okay. But at the time, it was incredibly challenging for me. It felt like it was going against every fiber in my being to do this painting and to have it not be good. And I would sit there paralyzed for most of the activity because I didn't know how to get over the hump. I didn't know how to get myself to do it. And it, I think 2 years ago, when I was pregnant with my daughter, we went and did an activity for my sister-in-law's birthday, and it was painting mugs. And I had to stand up and go outside at one point because I was so stressed out that I was choosing the wrong color and that it wasn't going to look good together, and that because when you're painting on the mug, it's before they put it into the what's it called? The thing where it makes it look pretty. Sorry to artistic people, I don't know the vocabulary for it. But because of that, the colors are much more muted when you're first uh, painting them. And so that just sent me into a full blown panic because I couldn't see how it was going to all work together and what it was going to look like. And when that was happening, I had already started doing this work in other areas of my life. So when that happened, it was the first time that I really went, whoa, okay, there's a story here. And the story is that I either need to be great at this or I can't do it at all. That black and white way of looking at it. And right after that, my husband ended up getting me a paint by number so that I could have some sort of structure for it, but that it was something that I could actually enjoy. Because I used to like doing paint by numbers or color by numbers when I was a kid, and I had forgotten about it. And when he got this for me, I absolutely loved it. And it was a great way for me to spend the last few weeks of my pregnancy. And it really gave my brain some new evidence that, oh, okay, this doesn't have to be black and white. I can do art. I don't have to get a certain level for it to be acceptable for me to enjoy it. And that really changed the game for me. And then, even more recently with cooking, that's only been really in the last 6 months or so that I have allowed myself to start looking at different recipes and trying different things. And I've been using ChatGPT to help me. I'll give it, an example of what meat I have for the day, and it will tell me. I'll say, "Hey, I've got this protein. What kind of meals could I create?" And that has opened a whole new world for me as well to go, "Oh, okay, I don't have to do this just this way, and I don't have to, only do these kinds of meals. I can do anything that I want." And at the time, ChatGPT would like walk me through each step. Now I've done it enough times. And again, coming back to that concept of putting in the reps, I've done it enough times now that I'm starting to trust myself more. And even saying this, it's so interesting to reflect on how you can have such a beautiful growth mindset towards certain things. And I've been really intentional about this over the last 5 years or so. But then there's still elements or still certain areas of your life where, unless you are really intentional about looking at it, it just flies straight under the radar. And that story will come up every single time and you will fall prey to it if you are not able to pay attention to it. And that was exactly what happened for me with the painting and then also with the cooking. It was only just recently that I went, hang on a second, I can do this however I want. And I can I can just try and I can just do, and I will get better over time. And I've got this support system where I don't have to do all the thinking as well as the cooking. That was another, I think, hack for me, was being able to use the AI tool as a way to decrease the cognitive load so that I wasn't having to focus on, okay, how do I put the ingredients together and how do I manage the different elements of this meal, and how do I make sure that everything is cooked at the same time and all those things. So that really took the pressure off of me to then be able to start enjoying it. And I never thought that I would say that I enjoy cooking. And I still wouldn't say it's my favorite activity, but I don't hate it. And I'll jump into the kitchen lots of times now and just pull something out and just kind of put it together. And that has been a huge reframe for me to go, oh, there is nuance here. And so at the time of this recording, I would say there's probably other areas of my life where I haven't even realized this yet. And it's going to come up, and that story is going to come up, and I'm going to have to go through this process again. But I've done it enough times now that I can pretty clearly see when I'm falling into it. I mean, at least a lot faster than I used to. And I was actually talking to a friend about this recently, and how we really get stuck in this way of thinking. And we really get stuck in going, okay, I'm either good at this or I'm bad at this, or telling a story of, oh, I don't know if I can go after this dream, or if I can really make this goal real, because whatever, XYZ, all these reasons why it wouldn't work. And she mentioned to me, or she said to me, I look at my child who's about 3.5, and the way that she moves through the world is with so much confidence, no hesitation, no fear. She speaks what's on her mind. She tells jokes. She has such a beautiful and vivid imagination. And in her world, she can do anything. There's no right or wrong. It's just is. And if there's something she wants to do, she's going to do it. And we talked about how at that stage of life, it's so beautiful and expansive, and there's just endless opportunities or possibilities of what could be. But then, of course, as we move through the world and as we get older and we go through school and have all these formative experiences, we start to almost develop this outer shell around us that, tells us, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You're not good at this. Less of this. That's too much. Whatever the story is, you're not good enough. That's embarrassing. Whatever. And now as an adult, it's as though we are trying to peel back the layers of that shell and break through it to go, hey, I want to find that version of me again, that childlike version of me that isn't scared to speak my mind or to be silly or to show up as authentically as I am and just be who I am. And I feel as though that's what I'm doing right now, is trying to get back to that version of me that knew what I wanted and wasn't scared of going after it, and just trying new things and failing and being okay, not even thinking about it. Like if a child wants to jump off of a picnic table if they've never done that before. I mean, sometimes kids are more cautious, but a lot of times kids are like, well, I'll figure it out. And they do it, and maybe they hurt themselves or something happens, but they're just so willing to just go for it. And now this whole kind of process that I'm going through at the moment is peeling back the layers and breaking through that shell and finding that version of me. And I was reflecting on this conversation that I had with her just this morning before I hit record, and I realized something really interesting, which is that the one area of my life that I feel like has never gotten stuck in this black and white way of thinking. And it's so lovely that this is the example. But the only thing that I can really think of that never, ever, ever got stuck in this way of thinking was play. Play to me is, I've always felt as though I can step into play and anything can happen. And as a speech pathologist as well, I spend a lot of time playing. I spend a lot of time sitting on the floor with little kids, following their lead and just seeing what comes up in their play. And it is the one area where I feel no pressure at all to try and make a game work a certain way. If we're playing some sort of stacking game or building a tower, I'm not in any way directing the child on how to put the pieces together or how to do it this way or that way. It needs to look a certain way. I don't find myself doing that at all. Like, we will create the weirdest things, or maybe they just want to throw the pieces across the room. I will happily do that with them, as long as we're not hurting anyone, of course. But I find that I'm so much more expansive and open and willing to just meet the child and meet myself wherever I'm at. And I mean, even now I can see my body is changing just talking about it, because it is an area of my life that feels so expansive. And how beautiful is it that the area that I feel most expansive in is the area that we tap into the most when we're children, and also is the way that we learn as kids, but I would argue as adults as well. It is the best way that we learn, is when we feel like we are playing, when it feels like it's natural and it's easy and it's fun. And so how cool is it for me to reflect on the fact that that's the one thing that I haven't lost, and that I'm trying to get back to as I'm moving through these lessons and unlearning this whole way of thinking. And so I wanted to share that, because I think we often forget about play and how important it is and how formative it is as a child. I think I feel quite fortunate that some of the work that I'm doing as a speech pathologist allows me to step back into that world a lot. I had a moment somewhat recently, a few months ago, with a child where we were playing with clothes and we were dressing the baby and we were doing all these fun things. And then he kind of got bored of dressing the baby, and he wanted to just kind of like make a huge mess with all the clothes and started throwing the clothes in every direction. And instead of bringing him back to playing with the doll, I just joined in and we just started throwing the clothes around the room. And the joy on this child's face was amazing, amazing. And it was such a key moment for me to go, yes, this is what it's about. This is about being able to follow wherever things are going. There doesn't have to be a right way or a wrong way. It's not black and white. There's all these beautiful ways that we can play, all these beautiful ways that we can move through the world. And now I think it's about bringing that way of thinking into as many different areas of my life as I can, and directly challenging that thought that it needs to look a certain way or be a certain way, or the problem needs to be solved a certain way in order to be right. Because in the real world, there are so many different ways that you could approach any problem. And one person's going to look at something and go, I want to go about it in this direction, and I'm going to get to the goal here, where I'm going to get the job that I want and have the house that I want or whatever. But then there might be another person that's like, actually, I want to go about it this way, and I'm going to go all the way over here and do all these different things, and I'm still going to eventually get to the job that I want and have the house that I want, whatever. But they can still get there, but their journeys can look completely different, and one is not better or worse than the other. It's just different. And it's such a liberating thought, I think, to be able to go, oh, I can get to this destination however I want to. And also, my destination is my destination. It's not the same as anyone else's, and that's okay. There isn't a right or wrong. There isn't a better or worse. It's just what is the best for you, and how are you going to get there, and how, what different opportunities are you going to expose yourself to, and How are you going to potentially move through the inevitable setbacks that are going to happen, the inevitable failures? And instead of seeing the failure as, oh, well, that's not meant for me, I guess I better totally change course and go in a different direction. We can shift that to go, well, I failed, or I didn't fail. I moved. I took a chance. I did something different and I learned something. And now I know from that lesson to do this differently. And now I can move a little bit more intentionally towards whatever that goal is. Because failure has to happen before you can be successful. It's not a bug of the system. It's a feature. It's something that is absolutely necessary. It is a prerequisite. And it doesn't even mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means that you've gotten some feedback and now you can adjust and now you can change course slightly or continue going the same way, so that you can keep learning that lesson in different ways. Because sometimes that needs to happen too. So anyway, this has been, I guess, my way of processing this belief or this limiting way of thinking that things have to be either one way or the other, and my ongoing learning that is not the case, and that there are lots of different ways we can do things, lots of different ways we can solve problems, lots of different ways that we can learn, and as much as possible finding my way back to that version of myself that can tap into that same level of energy that I tap into when I'm playing, and trying to apply that to as many aspects of my life as I can. So I hope that was helpful for someone. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear what your experiences have been of potentially finding yourself in this way of thinking, maybe how you've gotten yourself out of this way of thinking, and areas where you find that you are already really expansive. I'd love to hear from you. You can send me a DM on Instagram or comment on the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel or give us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That will help get this message out to more people. But again, I appreciate you guys so much for listening, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day, whatever you are doing. And I can't wait to see you on the next one.